Thank you to Meta for gifting the MetaQuest 3.
I wasn't originally going to make this video on this game because I decided I would spend my time just enjoying the game rather than making content on it, and that was the plan until not-so-lovable friend of mine, Daychamp, told me that the game was blowing up on YouTube and what, so I decided, why not? I already have a few hours in the game and I absolutely adore it, so I might as well talk about it. Thrill the Fight 2 is a boxing game, first and foremost, a sequel to Thrill the Fight, which released a few years back. Thrill the Fight was praised on being a scarily accurate boxing simulator that was used as a great workout and great game period. Thrill the Fight 1 had a story mode of sorts, more so a campaign since the story was non-existent. It's the exact same progression as a game like Punch-Out. Keep fighting guys and they get progressively stronger the more you fight. Eventually, the time of rounds increases, then the number of rounds. Your opponents would get stronger, more aggressive, and it was great. There were multiple difficulties that really felt nice to tackle on their own. Normal difficulty was fine if you wanted it solely as a game, but then Outclassed felt super fun if you wanted a full-fledged boxing experience. It was single player only, by the way, so you fought AI. Thought I'd add that real quick. Anyways, there's the brief recap of the first. The second one released very recently, just a few weeks ago in early access, where it still resides in, which is fine. For a cheap price of $10, I think this game offers well enough. Technically, I'll get to that later, for its price. The way it launched was and is interesting, because as of right now, the game is multiplayer only. Multiplayer was highly requested in Thrill the Fight 1, easily the most requested feature, so they launched this early access version strictly in multiplayer. There will be a single player mode, but as of now, nope, all gone. So let's tackle the multiplayer. I was worried a bit going into the game, as multiplayer VR boxing has been done before, but it wasn't that great. Creed specifically was a decent game, but a horrible boxing game. You were actively punished if you were boxing correctly, as the game rewarded the quantity of punches rather than the quality. So you could just slap the opponent's head over real fast over and over and get better results than actually swinging full punches. This was my main concern going into this multiplayer mode, and while there are flaws adjacent to this, for the most part, it's really balanced. You have to take full swings, you can't baby out or you won't get enough damage. You are rewarded for the quality of your punches, and you're rewarded even more so if you have a good quantity. Full-blown punches over and over in a combo are very efficient, but all of it depends on your stamina. Like real stamina, no gimmicky mechanic. If you achieve good combos though, you'll absolutely be rewarded with plenty of damage and a potential knockout. Combat feels just about as good as it did in Thrill the Fight 1, the feedback when you punch feels great, aided heavily by the controller vibration, the intensity of which changes on how strong your punch is. Punching feels really great, mostly because, well, boxing is great. Most pros in this game aren't unique to the game, more so unique to the sport of boxing. Boxing is an inherently satisfying experience with fulfilling payoff, that being a good workout. I'm not a big fan of sports, that much is evident, but boxing is more my style. I adore it, and the adoration of the sport has grown tenfold because of this game. It's made me appreciate the sport and the game. Thrill the Fight 2 is so insanely great at retaining everything that makes boxing fun. They make up for things that can't be fully replicated with workarounds that work just about as well, such as the feedback of your punches and getting punched. The feedback of your punches I've already talked about mostly, but getting punched has its own feedback. It's mainly auditorial in the early stages, but you get visual feedback the more damage you take. The sides of your vision will get blurry for one. I think they might have actually updated to a little bit of color instead of a blur. And the closer you get to a pre-knockout state, as I'll call it, you'll start hearing a heart-pumping sound effect. The pre-knockout state is your cue to start playing the defensive, as your vision will get all messed up for a second, giving you that feeling of being lightheaded. All of this feedback is really nice, however, it does filter a bit when it comes to the visual feedback you get when hitting your opponent. It's fine on its own, but comparatively to Thrill the Fight 1, it's way less everything. In the first game, every hit you made would come packaged with a burst of color, the color of which changing depending on how hard you hit. It was nice and made for really nice visual feedback, but now it's become totally audio reliant if you want to exactly find out how hard you hit them. The visual feedback is almost non-existent for the most part because of this. Their heads blow back a slight bit, but that's simply not good enough when you compare it to what came before. The only part of the visual feedback that I can say is definitely better is the pre-knockout state, I'll say. They make a facial expression resembling pain and exhaustion when they're on the brink of being knocked out. This expression is way more readable than the one in Thrill the Fight, and because of that feels more satisfying. All in all, regardless of the weaker visual feedback, the feedback in general is still great. If they added the color splashes alongside blood and bruises, because that's also something they took out for some reason, we'd be golden. Fights themselves feel great in this multiplayer scenario. While the gameplay remains generally the same from the first game, your opponent being a person adds so much to the experience you wouldn't get otherwise. The opponents in the first game were AI. They were predictable to a certain extent and often could be cheesed. In here, you don't get that artificial flaw that the AI has. You have the unpredictability of a human being now. This makes fights so much more unique and interesting because you never know what you're getting into. This also makes finding your opponent's weaknesses so much fun. Opponents in the first game didn't really have the weaknesses per se. They were all just more difficult versions of each other. They didn't have visible stamina decrease or anything like that, but here you can visibly see the state of your opponent a lot of the time. Finding flaws, human flaws, in your opponent and conquering them is the most rewarding thing ever. Finding out their defense is flawed and taking advantage of it, figuring their average patterns when they dodge, figuring out they don't have great stamina so you can take advantage of that. All of it leads to a real, shockingly human experience. This may be me discovering my love for boxing and enjoying the sport, but as a game, hell, as an experience, I have a deep appreciation for this game and how it motivates me to work out and the dedication the devs had toward it. I don't know if this is true or not because I just saw it once, but I heard they started over partway into development for whatever reason, and clearly they persevered. For being in early access, while flawed, there is so much potential here. Hell, it's already great. Truly it is. Once we get a fleshed out campaign, some fixes to the damage system, which, by the way, is actively being worked on, seriously, like, they post updates in the game every 2 to 3 days as of now. They are working on this game. I can't wait to see where it goes from here, and me personally, I'm gonna be here for that journey. Love you to death, Half-Brick. It's good to see a non-VR company that truly appreciates the medium and potential of VR. And makes experiences that are more than just cash grabs. This wasn't in the script, I'm adding it right now. These servers kind of suck really bad. So half of the time, like, maybe more than half of the time, they're pretty good, right? But then you'll get the ones where everything is like, has like a 3-second delay to it. And sometimes, it gets my blood boiling. Because the funny problem with that is not only are the matches themselves horrible, you can't just back out, because when you do that, you lose a rank. So you just kind of have to bite the bullet and lose the rank. And I say, no, I don't know. No, stop that. They have added little safeguards for that whole server problem, but it's still not perfect by any means. It should not be a dice roll if your server works or not. Anyways, if you enjoyed, I don't have to tell you. You already know. With that all being said, I'll see you guys later. Peace.
Just another quick thanks to Meta for sponsoring the video and gifting the Quest 3.